my view, my legal view, is that a transaction that requires ratification is not complete. It's incomplete. This is a document. It is signed and sealed and delivered. But because it is a deed which has to be ratified by a named authority, that is the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, this process is incomplete. Anybody who allows this thing to end us in a judgment debt is a bad lawyer.
Right, Mr. Martin-Aiku, thank you very much for making time to join us. You heard the former Chief Justice of the Republic, Sophia Akuffo, and what she says. You find the summary of the textual details in the statement issued by the IEA dated the 28th of November, and they say that the Republic of Ghana should set up a Ghana Lithium Company, GLC. The GLC should be commissioned to develop the entire value chain from mining raw lithium to manufacture of batteries and other products in Ghana. Per current international best practices, a local refinery must be established even before excavation commences. And then they make projections and tell you how much we should be looking at. A value of approximately USD 24 billion for the entire 12 years mining period under the lease. The projected value of the final product, lithium carbonate, is approximately 296 billion. And they say other things and say this is what you should do because this is actually pursuant and in line with the UN Charter on Economic Rights and Duties of the State. They say Ghana is rich. Let us finally take full and meaningful control of the management of our wealth. What do you say?
Samson, good morning. And good morning to Prof. and then the Honorable former Member of Parliament for Tamale. Samson, I sent the agreement to them about 2 or 3 weeks ago for them to read. But I'm still convinced they have not read the agreement properly. And then secondly, too, I believe they are oblivious a whole lot of things. But let me just go ahead and deal with the matter. I've read their points. Something, if you may recall, the minister signed the agreement on 19th and then gave a summary at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. And then he made it clear, very clear, that they are not going to start mining immediately because there are some regulatory steps or other processes that we need to complete. And I'll touch on them because I'm dealing with their very first point, just to tell you. And we've said this on several platforms. So the first point is that the agreement will have to be taken to Parliament for ratification. The minister will do that. So that's not an issue at all. Because other than that, I was getting the impression, or they were getting the impression that work has started, the agreement has not been ratified. So I don't think that's an issue we should belabor. So that's number one. Two, as we speak, they are going through the environmental permitting process. That has to be completed. They have to be issued with an EPA permit. And then it will come back to the Minerals Commission to be issued an operating permit and perhaps get a construction permit. And then they can go to the ground. And then, according to the plan they presented, it will take about 14 months or so for them to, start a construction of their mine. So the issue of ratification is neither here nor there. Let nobody make a mistake and think that following the signature, work is going to be started. So we can leave that. It's going to be ratified. The minister will do that. So that's not an issue.
But the feedback or commentary is based on what you are already touting as a better deal from previous, deals that we have had.
I'll come to that.
And lithium deals elsewhere. And they say you're wrong. This is colonial type.
They are horribly wrong. I'll come to that. Something, in the first place, number one, they say that the agreement we have now as a republic is not fundamentally different from the ones we have now. They are fundamentally different in several respects. Ownership, the fiscal regime, and then value addition, etc. I don't think they look at all these things. Now, the first thing I want you to know, or the first thing I want us to discuss is this. They talked about 160,000 tons of lithium. I'm referring to the commentary or the report that they put there. That figure is wrong. The company is going to produce 350,000 tons of lithium for the next 12 years, not 160. So they got it all wrong. That's number one. Number two, if we're going to get 294 billion, then our problems in Ghana will be over. Let me tell you why they got that one wrong too. The price of lithium today, as we speak, what we call the concentrate. In other words, when you take the raw lithium and you do a little bit of processing, it is $1,789 for the concentrate. Then when you set up a refinery or a chemical plant and you refine the concentrate, that is, if you add value, the price on the wet market as we speak, as at 30th November, is $18.53. The mistake they made was to multiply $160,000 tons with a figure from 5.3. I don't know how they got their figure. Something. It takes anything on the average between 8 to 10 tons of the concentrate to produce a ton of the carbonate. So the proper calculation they should have done was, you take the 350,000 tons and multiply it by 1,789. That gives you about $626 million. That is a year. Okay, they use 160. So they have even undervalued what is going to be produced. And then two, granted we even use 10 tons. It takes about, I said, between 8 to 10 tons of the concentrate to produce a carbonate. 350,000 tons of lithium a year, the concentrate, will give you 50,000. 50,000. So you have to multiply 50,000 by, if I want to go their route, by the Friday price, which is 18,353, that gives about 970 million. So let's assume, even for want of any sophisticated calculation, let's say $1 billion. So at Friday price, if you want to use Friday price, assuming the company is producing today, you are barely talking about 10 billion. So I don't know how they arrive at 296. It is not rocket science for anybody to find out that it takes you about 8 to 10 tons to produce a ton of the carbonate.
Right.
So I don't know how they multiply 160,000 tons by 5.3. I don't know what is 5.3. So they got it all wrong, and that is horrible. It's a serious matter. I don't know. They need to come and tell the public how they got their figures.
So it's good we get you. It's good we get you on this, and in the manner you have you are beginning to also break down the issues from your perspective and the facts as you have them. And as we have already agreed, we clearly don't have time today to deal with this matter. So we will deal with this in detail, and also have the IAA also share what their views will be subsequently. So let me just take a minute comment or so each from my other guest, and then we postpone this to the next time. Yes, Honorable Minister of State.
Well, I think that the Chief Executive Officer has gotten their whole critique wrong.
Really?
Yeah, whole wrong. They are saying that the agreement is a royalties-based agreement, and that there could be a better way of getting value out of our lithium. And if you consider lithium being the next phase, being very critical in the energy transition, that the whole world is talking about environmental warming, and that we should be working towards phasing out fossil fuel. And lithium comes in as a very important mineral. So why, if you want to take value out of your mineral, why don't you invest, be a co-investor, enter into a joint ventureship? Okay, that is a fundamentally different fiscal arrangement from what they have done. So they need to understand that. Okay. Whether they've gotten the calculations wrong or not, the point of IEA, as I understand it, is that the world has moved from the colonial type agreement where mineral-rich countries depend on royalties.
And even the Reuters report says that as part of the deal, Ghana has increased the royalty rate to 10% from the standard 5%. This is what we have been touting and we have done
well.
The state's interest in the project to 13% from 10%.
That is the even carried on interest. The carried on interest.
And they are simply quoting what the minister
yes.
Then they said on top of the state's stake, Ghana's Minerals Income Investment Fund. That's what I think Mr. Isi was talking about that we should pay attention to. Will acquire another 6% in the mining operation and 3.06% in Atlantic lithium.
So you see, so if we have Ghana Mineral Income Investment Fund, how much is the company investing in this project? That the Mineral Income Investment Fund cannot be a co-owner, a co-investor in that project.
Their biggest concern, and I've heard you over a certain period, and I think that they are speaking your language. And they are quoting President Paul Kagame and said he could not have put it more eloquently when he said, quote, if the owners of natural resources go around begging, then you should know there is something wrong with our minds.
Yes.
Well, I'm a bit relieved, actually, hearing the CEO saying that the transaction is still not complete. I'm relieved. I'm relieved to a degree. And I have to also start by saying that I haven't read the agreement, and therefore I can't pretend to know exactly what the detail of the agreement is. But granted on your report, I think the model of the world today is shifting towards the angle of ownership participation. And so I will be happy if there are things in the agreement that gives Ghana an ownership stake. I think recently Botswana reconcluded a new deal with De Beers. And Botswana has been able to secure as much as 30% in the medium term, and in the short term, and in the medium to long term, 50% of ownership in the produce itself and then the value chain. De Beers has been compelled to actually establish the refinery, quote unquote, the cleaning, the cutting and cleaning of diamond, but in Botswana. In other words, the recent Botswana model points to what can be done. And I'm confident that CEO Ise, whom I know quite well, and I know he's very capable and he's up to the job. I think, so on the basis of that, I'm not sure what the details are. I mean, I haven't read that agreement.
Okay.
But on the basis of the reportage that has been given, I do hope that we have more than the royalties.
All right.
Because the royalties have been the old model and people have not been particularly.
And thankfully, we are reconvening and we are going to look at the very detail. Right. What do you have to say by way of a preliminary comment before we get you next time? Thankfully, hopefully, then you do as we normally will benefit from you, a good presentation on this.
Executive is not being receptive to inputs. He's been very dismissive of everything I have said. I don't understand why he's so hostile. The fact is, he's using carbonate calculations. If you use hydroxide calculations, you will get what IEA is saying, because hydroxide yields are far higher in terms of the per dollar output than carbonate. So these kind of things where rather than take your time to engage civil society properly and benefit from the benefits of their diverse opinions, etc., I don't think it's sound. He says they are totally wrong and things like that. Meanwhile, he has not taken the benefit of understanding the full value chain dynamics, the different outputs that you can get from spodumene, etc. Our lithium that we are currently producing is spodumene. With spodumene carbonation, yes, you get the numbers that he's going. If you move towards hydroxide and some of the more fancy battery grade outputs that are now on the market, you can get exactly those very large numbers. Of course.
But he's referring to inaccurate figures on the part of the
I'm saying
IEA.
that it depends on the way you configure the value chain, what you get from the spodumene eventually. It's not always that you get only lithium carbonate from the spodumene. You can get different things from the spodumene, as well as the fact that you can go all the way to lithium ion batteries. So if they say that if we do value chain integration, we can get those very large numbers they are saying, they are not necessarily wrong. The argument you may make is that we may not have the infrastructure in this country to produce, say, lithium ion batteries, or to produce lithium hydroxide, or some of these other more high value outputs. It takes a lot of electricity, for instance, to produce even carbonate. And this country is not very well known for its electricity infrastructure these days. The cost of electricity is very high. So there are a lot of analysis that can be performed. My key point is that he cannot say what IEA said is wrong simply by saying that the numbers based on his value chain analysis is wrong. Because it depends on what outputs they are using in the end of the value chain and the beginning of the value chain. That's point one. Point two, his conduct does not suggest being receptive to inputs.
Okay, we have the opportunity of a fuller picture. We have the opportunity of a fuller picture where
the last point. The last point is that the government is making these commitments based on a green mining policy, which has not received input from the public, from civil society, from stakeholders. So why did they wait? We've had about 12 years to do this. The Piedmont and Barari and Atlantic Lithium alone have been doing this for 6 years.
All right.
So we've had 6 years when they've had prospective licenses. Why did we wait till August before we had the green mining policy? And then to base a contract on that, when they themselves recognize that for green minerals, our existing legal regime is not adequate.
All right.
Therefore, we needed a new regime to address this. So there's a lot to say, but unfortunately, there's no time.
Thank you, Bryce Simmons. And like I announced, next week, God willing, Bryce Simmons will do his usual presentation that we love to benefit from on this. And Mr. AC will also be in the studio to help us navigate the entire, details of the terms of the contract and see whether or not whose position is superior and what can be done better. Thank you all very much. My outfit, as always, is by Habil Scooter. You can find them at Adjiringano Gate, East Legon. And you can call them if you're looking for kaftans. They have the best. 0200 84 1988. 0200 84 1988. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., I'm continuing my interaction with the judiciary, represented by His Lordship Justice Emmanuel Yoni Kolendi. And as issues even come up about the court and its posture on other matters, we are not going to deal with questions of delay and what the Supreme Court should do better. We will also find out how worried they are about the issues of trust and what exactly they are doing. The CJ has been going around the country and seeking to ensure that things are done right. Thank you. As always, my guests have been Bryce Simmons, Honorary Vice President of Imani Africa. Professor Kofi Abochi is Dean, UPSA Law School. Inus Ofseni is lawyer, former MP, Tamale Central, and former Minister, Lands and Natural Resources and Roads and Highways as well. And joining us in the last segment, albeit very briefly, has been Martin Aisi, CEO of the Minerals Commission. We reconvene next week. I'm Samson Ladia Yenene. Have a good afternoon.